Welcome to Ashley's Vintage Journey. I'm Ashley, and today I'm going to be making this pattern for my daughter Abigail. I found this pattern in a big lot of vintage patterns, and I seen this one and thought, oh my gosh, I have to make it. It's so cute. I also would like to eventually make the bib and the little dress that's in here. I just got to make sure all the pattern pieces are in there because I think this is one of them that didn't have all the pattern pieces. So I have to look in there and see if all the pieces are in there. I do know all the pieces for the nightgown are in there, just not sure if the bib and the dress has all the pattern pieces. Now this is a one size for infants, so I'm not sure if this is going to fit her 100%. It is a nightgown, so it will be a little big on her, and it will be like a tent on her because she's a preemie, and even though she's 6 months old, she actually is only 3 months old. So we'll see how it fits on her and see how it does. Also, I want to make sure, because she has a feeding tube, I want to make sure it works well with her feeding tube. So we'll be seeing all the ins and outs with that also. So let's get into making this pattern. So this is the pattern I'm using. It's a McCall's 7715. It's one size infants. I'm going to be doing the sleeper in the corner. This is the fabric I picked out. It's a flannel. It has little pink tulips on it with little green leaves on it. It's so cute. So then I have this pink ribbon that I also have. I just found it in my stash. I didn't go out and pick it out. Then the white thread that I'm using. So I started to cut out my pattern pieces. Once I cut out all my pattern pieces, I then laid out my fabric and laid them out and pinned them and then cut them out. So after I cut all my pattern pieces, I then put all the markings of the pattern pieces on the fabric, so then I knew where to cut and fold. So on the front piece, I had to cut down the middle to the one dot so I could make the opening for the buttons. And what I did was I just pinned down the fabric that I cut out for that. So it did take me a couple minutes to figure out how to do it, and once I figured it out, it hit me like lightning, and I was like, oh, okay, I got this. And I went ahead and pinned it all in place, and then I went ahead and stitched it up. So once I was done sewing that, I went ahead and cut some of the excess of the bulk out, so that way the neckline wasn't going to be super thick. So then I folded the edge in over itself so it wouldn't have any of the fraying or any of the edges showing out. So after I was done pinning it all down, I had to hand sew this all because it would have looked weird with the stitches coming through the front. So I just went ahead and hand sewn it. I think this is called a whip stitch, but I'm not real great at hand sewing, so I could be wrong about that. So this is what it looked like after I was done sewing it. You could see some of the stitches in the front, but once I got a little bit better at it, you couldn't really see them at all. So next I sewed the sleeves to the back bodice, and then after I was done that, I then sewed the sleeves to the front of the bodice. So this is what it looked like so far. So now it's time for me to do the neck. Now when I cut out the pieces for the neck, it only asked me to cut out one. I ended up cutting out two, and when I sized it up against the neckline, it didn't match, so I ended up taking both pieces and sewing them together, and you can't even notice that I sewed them together. Then after I sewed that piece on, I went ahead and clipped the corners and folded it over, and then I folded the whole thing over and on itself so there was no edges showing. And after I was done pinning all that down, I ended up hand sewing again because I didn't want the thread to show through in the front, and it turned out really good. So here I did the buttonhole stitch. I did one on each sleeve and one at the bottom so I can run the ribbon through. I did hand stitch those. And then what I did is I hemmed up the sleeve and I just rolled it in on it over itself and did a very small hem. It didn't really have any instructions on this in the pattern, so I just kind of made it up. So here I had pinned up all of the sleeve and the side of the bodice on both sides, and I went ahead and just sewed that up so that way everything was now closed up. So now I'm doing the hem for the bottom of the nightgown, and at the bottom of this is also the channel for the ribbon. So this is where the buttonhole also is. So what I did was I just hemmed the bottom around where the buttonhole is at the bottom. So now I am sewing a channel for the ribbon to go through on the sleeve. There was no instructions for this, so I kind of just made it up, but it turned out great. And there's the buttonhole, and I just kind of sewed a little channel in there. So now I'm sewing that little placket that's at the bottom to let in and out, and when they get bigger. I did sew this with a very wide stitch, so that way if I do ever need to take it out, it will be very simple because I made a wide stitch. Now on the markings I had made, it ended up not being very even, so I ended up just kind of winging it, and it turned out great. So now what I'm going to do is thread the ribbon through that little channel I had made earlier, and I pinned a part of the ribbon down so that way it doesn't pull all the way through, just in case. Now here I did get a little stuck, but I ended up getting it through. I did eventually get it through, but it just took a little bit of time and a little bit of work. So here I'm threading the ribbon through on the sleeves. This I made a little bit difficult on myself because I didn't sew the channels wide enough, but it was okay. I got them through. It only took a couple minutes. So here I decided to go ahead and do snap buttons. It made it so much easier than having to put on real buttons and then do buttonholes. And this worked out perfect because it makes it easy to get on and off of her also. So after I was done the buttons, I decided to go ahead and put a little bow at the top, just to give a little something extra. Now it's time for the reveal. So I hope you guys really enjoyed the reveal. I love it. It turned out great. It is a little big on her, but that is okay because winter's coming and it will fit her perfect by then. This is a flannel, so it will be nice and warm for her. I love how the buttons turned out. They turned out great, especially for her tube. It makes it so it doesn't move around, and I just love how that turned out. Now the instructions didn't have anything on how to do the channels for the ribbons, so I kind of just made it up and it turned out perfectly. It also didn't really have anything on how to fold over this one spot, but it's okay because I figured that out. Also, I think this is for whenever she gets a little bigger and you can extend it out and make it longer. Although I don't think she's going to end up needing it because I think she'll grow out of the top part before she would the length. I love how this opens, and she can have it open or have it closed up so that way her little feet can stay warm, or she can have them out because she doesn't really like her feet tucked in as it is. But it turned out great. I love it. I can't wait to put it on her. I'm going to wait until it gets a little bit cooler out because we've had a lot of hot days lately, so I'm just going to wait until then to put it on her. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I can't wait to do the next one, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.